Okay, I hope you can hear me. Nordic Investment Bank. The bank is public. It's owned by the Nordic countries and the Baltic state, and it does not primarily exist to make a lot of money. Wow, it exists. It exists to do something good. We call it our mandate, what we can do. But before going there, I will try now to explain what NIB is, what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. I have very short time, and I have a lot to say. Before doing that, before I accepted this invitation, thank you for the invitation, by the way, I was thinking, why should I go to Canada? What can I say to catch the attention? What would be realistic? Is it really worth it? And then I started looking at the map a bit longitude-wise. We are basically located on the same place, meaning that we have the same climate. Given that we have the same climate, we have basically the same type of, very similar type of ecosystems. If we have the same type of ecosystem, we also have the same type of industries. And we have the same type of energy system. So the more I dig, the more I realize we're quite similar, actually. We have democratic countries with very strong governance. We have strong owners, AAA rated. We have even the GDP per capita is about the same level. So whatever I looked into, it kind of a match all over the place. So maybe someone will listen to me after all. I don't know how many of you, or some of you are probably very familiar with the green bond market. The green bond market, have you ever seen a green bond not being oversubscribed? It's quite rarely, unless they are really crappy. Meaning there is quite a lot of green money out there at the market. So what role can NIB have in that environment? We're supposed to support sustainable development. There is already sufficient with money in a way. It's all. One could argue, I could face this argument today. So that's what my starting point I was thinking when I talk here today. If I can have the next slide, otherwise swap. So what is NIB? NIB is we only have one product. We provide long-term loans. They are typically the size of 50 million euro per loan. We're AAA rated. That means that we can fund ourselves on fairly favorable term on the capital market, international capital market. Based in Helsinki, already said, we was founded in 1975 during the oil crisis when there was lack of long-term financing. In 2005, also the 3 Baltic states entered into the bank with ambition to kind of boost them up to the Nordic level. They were former Soviet states and were lagging behind at that time, and is still to some extent. Next slide. I have to be very fast here. So this is the bank in the number. There are basically 3 numbers I want to emphasize. This is how much capital our owners, 8 member states, have injected. This is how much we have been doing in terms of lending since 1975. There's a very much large leverage in between these numbers. So one can actually, as a public actor, do some quite large good. Need never crowd out financing. Our idea is to crowd in financing, meaning that we only finance up to 50% of the project cost. There needs to be room for whatever financial market out there. So in terms of projects that we have financed, it's even a larger number. Large number, not compared to KfW. Their number were, this should be compared to 107, we are 2.4. So in that respect, we are 220 employees. So it's a quite small bank actually in terms of number of employees. It's quite a lot of money per employee. 10 of these numbers are like guys like me, working with sustainability issues on full time. And I think that says a bit about the ambition of the bank. And there are 8 member countries. Next slide. We have a mission, we have a vision, we can support productivity and sustainability. All right? I come from this side. What is the beauty? I mean, all operations nowadays have a vision and a mission, and you can read it in their annual report and so on. What matters here, what is important here, is that the bank actually means it. No deal can never, ever be passed on to our decision makers unless an assessment has been carried out, demonstrating what are the benefits. How much phosphorus is reduced due to this investment, or the CO2 emissions, or whatever impact. So all project undergoes a review from a sustainability perspective. And also when the banks set their budget and plans, this is what we should deliver on. It's even more important than the financial, as long as there are no red numbers. Normally when it comes to a bank, the credit decisions are taken in the credit committee. We have a mandate and credit committee. This guy, he sits directly under the president. He has equally right to speak up as the financial people. And then I skip this part since we are short on time. Next. Do I have a next slide? Yeah, the previous. So very short now how we do. First, we look into the counterparty. We do not want to do good project in a crappy counterparty. Okay, that's short. That's ESG, both E, S, and G. In the sustainability policy, we also have an exclusion list. We do not work with the fossil energy sector at all. All right, you can attack sustainability development, sustainability financing from two directions, or you have to. One is do not support the dirty stuff, and do recognize the green and support that stuff. So this is no dirty stuff. It's from 21, so it's quite new. On the environmental side, we have a mandate rating. We need to, there will rate a project. I cannot go into the detail. It's based on it stands on two legs, qualitative assessment and a quantitative assessment. You need to score sufficiently high. We can have a project that is all the way from negative, it can be neutral in terms of impact, or it can be positive on a more grade scale. And only projects reaching the two highest level are eligible need financing. And then green bond, I will touch upon possibly a little bit later. The greenest asset that we find that we can fund ourselves through green bonds. We are very active in the development of the green bonds and reporting it, and it's obviously a natural element. And last but not least, 3 years after project implementation, we go back and redo the review. Did the benefits that was promised to us actually materialize? And that I think is quite unique in the financial sector. Next. Now, do I have any time? Yeah. So if I'm going to summarize this, what can a public bank do? Fill the gaps. I mean, what did I say? The green bond market is there. They oversubscribe. There is a ton of grant. But in the Nordics, at least, the Nordic-Baltic context, there's always a lack of long-term financing. So that's where we step in. But at the same time, when I'm out meeting with the client, I always try to push them. Can you not really do a little bit better? And given that we can fund ourselves fairly cheap on the capital market, we can also provide okay-ish terms for long-term financing that possibly no one else can do. And they are kind of interested in that, and that motivates them to go the extra mile. And this is the first building block in all sustainable financing. Know how the proceeds are used. I told you before, we only finance 50% of the project cost that need to be a project. We have in our loan agreement an undertaking, meaning that if they do not do what they have promised to do for the money, the loan goes in default. They need to repay it. So it's quite strict, actually. And then what I already said, you need to exclude the dirty stuff. We cannot afford it. In the long term, the society cannot afford it. And then obviously we need to define what we consider to be green. Here we can disagree, someone thinks this is green, someone else. But there are fairly harmonized approaches to how to define green. And then we have the transition element, which I'm supposed to talk about today, but I forgot. Same here, what is transition? I mean, when I come out to company, they are always all are transitioning. They're always moving the bar a little bit. What you need to sit down and do, or what we have had to sit down and do, is to define how much do they need to move the bar. What type of minerals is needed in a sustainable society? When it comes to hydrogen, is low hydrogen okay? Pink hydrogen, there are so many colors of hydrogen. CSS, is CSS for a fossil fuel power plant, okay. Or should it be only CCS part of 8? This is discussion that we have internally and we have to sit down and define. And this one, I would make the link to what we heard before on the SDGs. Even if you have a project that meets the criteria, if it does harm to any of the other SDG, step away. Obviously, it needs to be based on science, but this forward-looking, I don't have time for that now, but it's kind of difficult to introduce in the financial sector, given that they typically is very backward-looking. They are very good in extrapolate graphs. When we're talking about transition, it's not to extrapolate. We need to do this. And transparency, of course. We need to tell our stakeholders what we are doing. Okay, did I manage? I'm totally exhausted. Thank you.